everyone, my name is Maddie, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking about all of the series I am currently in the middle of. So, like pretty much everyone who reads, I read a pretty big mix of series and standalone books, but series, you know, they take some good hard effort to get through because there's a lot of books to read one series. And this frequently results in being left in the middle of many series whilst picking up all the new exciting ones that come out and not having the self-restraint to, you know, finish the ones you're reading first. Now, I'm going to run through some stats in a minute about how many series I've finished versus the ones I'm in the middle of, and I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty proud of them. It's nowhere near as bad as I thought, though it's pretty bad. But I thought today I would run through kind of where I'm at with a load of series, which ones I'm actually actively interested in continuing with right now versus ones that I'm not DNFing, but right now are probably not going to be any pick up anytime soon. And this I thought was the perfect time to do it because I think when you're seeing this, next week will be Steph from Steph Loves Final Book Support Group, the first week of the readathon for that, which is a readathon all around trying to finish that last book in a series. Now, I will say I will probably be using these readathons for a combination of continuing a series and finishing a series, because a lot of the ones that are my top priorities at the moment are ones which I have more than one book left in, but I wouldn't necessarily want to read multiple in 1 week. So it's still a good nudge to put some focus on some series and to try and progress them, but I may not quite use it as intended, we'll see. So we're gonna start off with some stats. I spent way too long over the last couple of days making a spreadsheet to track all my series and going through Goodreads with a fine-tooth comb and finding every series I've ever started and updating my progress on it. So there are quite a few. Some of these are very old. These are series I read a very long time ago, but I wanted a cohesive list, so I've done the whole thing anyway. So the place to start is how many series have I started? That number is 79, which isn't as bad as I thought, and I'm sure there are some missing, either because I'm not aware they're a series or I read them way before I started doing Goodreads, because I only have my Goodreads for the last kind of 3 to 4 years, plus any I could think of when I first started it that were really obvious, so there's a lot missing. But 79 series, it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot, and they're all at very different points about where I've got with them. So the first and the most exciting stat is how many series I've completed, and this I mean series that have finished, no more books are currently planned to come out in them, and I have read all existing books. For that I've done 20. 20 out of 79, that's more than a quarter. I'm pretty happy with that, knowing I have fully finished and completed a quarter of the series that are out. That is not bad, I'm very happy with that. That does include things all the way back to Hunger Games, but I'm very happy with it, especially as a lot of them are actually very recent. Next is the group of series that I am up to date with, so I've read every book that is currently out, but the series aren't completed yet, they are ongoing series, and for that there are 15. Again, pretty good. I'm pretty proud of being up to date on 15 series. That's more than I expected, considering most series have a book coming out each year to 2 years. I don't feel like I read the latest book in a series, 10 times a year, but apparently I do. Apparently I've somehow done this. I'm pretty damn happy with that stat. So in total, for series that there aren't currently books out that I could be reading, 35 out of 79. That is almost half. I'm very happy about that fact. So I'm not doing too badly. But then we start getting into the ones where I should be reading them. So the way I have done this, I have both tracked on my reading spreadsheet, but for these stats, I am saying how many books are out in the series that I've not read yet. I do also have a stat on my spreadsheet, which is how many books do I own? And those are more the series that I'm going to be talking about in detail today, as they're the ones I'm realistically going to be reading next because I own the next books. But I am doing these stats based on how many books are out, meaning I, technically could read them and just haven't quite yet. So the number of series with one book out that I've not currently read yet and not quite got to is 16, so not too bad. I'm only one book behind in a lot of those. Some of those are duologies, trilogies, longer. Some of them, though, don't forget, will be series where the second book, for example, has just come out. The third book maybe comes out in a few months and I've only read the first. So not all of those are good situations, but you know, not too terrifying a number. I could catch up on a few of those. Then there are 13 series where there are 2 books out that I've not currently read. Again, sometimes this is a trilogy where I've only read the first book, sometimes this is a longer series and I'm just behind. Though I do tend to find once I'm at like book 2 of a series, I'm probably invested enough that I'll near enough keep up, or at least not get far behind, unless I'm intentionally waiting, because I do find with series that if I know there's only like 2 more books coming out, I might wait until they're all out and read them all at once, instead of choosing to forget what comes out in the next 2 years, because I'm rubbish at remembering what happens in a book and then I end up having to reread. So I do sometimes intentionally pause series to wait for more books to come out. But 13 with 2, that's not too bad. And then this one I'm very proud of is the number of series with 3 or more, because one of them has a lot more than that, books out that I've not currently read that I'm, you know, intending to carry on with at the moment. And there's only 3 of those. Not too many. I'm not too mad at that. Only 3 series where I'm really, really behind. And then the one other stat that is relevant is the series I have DNF'd, of which there are 12. So quite a few, and these are series, not even that I've necessarily 100% decided I'll never, ever, ever carry on with, but for now, they're definitely not of active interest. I have no real intention of carrying on with them. You never know, one day I might revisit them as I would any DNF'd book, but for now there are 12 series that I've pretty much decided I don't really have a whole lot of intention of carrying on with. Now, if all you really want to see is me talking in a bit more detail around which series that I'm like really considering carrying on with at the moment, and also the ones which are the most likely contenders for the final book support group, skip to this timestamp here. But what I'm really quickly going to do now is literally just list off all the series in each of those categories, just for anyone that's interested in all the series I'm in the middle of, just like a all my unread books kind of style. So I'm going to list all those off. I don't have the majority of my flat, so I can't hold them up, and I'm not going to edit in pictures for all of them. I do apologise, I don't have that much willpower, but we're going to quickly run through every single series in each of those categories, including the ones I DNF'd, and then we will get on to, for each of the 1 book left, 2 book left, 3 or more books left, which ones I'm kind of really actively looking at the moment. So, starting off by running through all the series which are totally complete series and I have read all of the books that are out in them. We have Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur, The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, I Hear the Sunspot by Yuki something. This is going to annoy me. I Hear the Sunspot by Yuki Firmino, the Benedict series starting with Finding Sky by Joss Sterling, the Tea Dragon series by Kay O'Neill, Saga by Brian K. Vaughan, Strange the Dreamer and Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, the Fever Wake Duology Plus novellas by Victoria Lee, Divergent by Veronica Roth, Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan, The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman, The Captive Prince by C.S. Pacat, The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater, the Ark of Scythes series by Neil Schusterman, The Nevernight Chronicles by Jay Kristoff, the Villains duology, Monsters of Verity duology, and Shades of Magic trilogy, and Archive duology by V.E. Schwab, Six of Crows and the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo, The Brown Sisters by Talia Hibbert, and The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. That was a struggle. My brain started struggling there. I also really think I may have miscounted some of the stats. If I have, we're just going to ignore it. And then on to series where I believe more books will be coming, some of which I know there's more, some I'm just pretty sure there's more coming, but I am currently up to date. We have Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, Middle Game and Wayward Children's series by Sean Maguire, The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, Fractured Fables by Alex E. Harrow, The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune, House of Night by I cannot quite remember who, a mother-daughter duo, Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, Monk and Robot with A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, The Wedding Date by, oh my gosh, it's been so long since I read the series. I can't remember who it's by, and I think it may also be complete. Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, and Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Again, sorry these are not going to be perfect, it's the best I can do. I spent way too long staring at all these, so this was as good as it was going to get. Next up we have series where I am 1 book behind from finishing it, starting with The Green Hollow duology by Emily Tesh, The Singing Hill Cycle by Guy Vaux, The Carls by Hank Green, The Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir, the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson, the Dreamer trilogy by Maggie Stiefvater, Gumiho by Kat Cho, the Infinity Cycle by Adam Silvera, the Royals series by Rachel Hawkins, Check Please by I have no idea who, the King of Scars duology by Leigh Bardugo, Shadow Scent by again, oh, PM Freestone, I do know that one. Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This Mortal Call by Emily Savada. What If It's Us by Adam Silvera and Becky Chambers. And The Wolves of Mercy Falls by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm really realising I should have put author names in this table. We then have series where I have 2 or more books that I need to catch up on, starting with the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, the Skybound Saga by Alex London, the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, the Imperium Trilogy by Claire Legrand, the Mistborn Trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, the Daevabad Trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty, the Bright Sessions by Lauren Shippen, Hell's Library by not a clue, Women Are Some Kind of Magic by Amanda Lovelace, The Sidekick Squad by C.B. Lee, and Tales of Inthia by Effie Calvin. We then have the Few series where I'm 3 or more books behind, and for that we have The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, the Tenseret series by Neon Yang, and Fortuna Sworn by Kelsey Sutton. And then really quickly, I'm gonna run through all the series that I have DNF'd completely. So we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Shatter Me by Tahera Murphy, the Winter Night Trilogy by Catherine Arden, Serpent and Dove by no idea who, the Aurora Cycle by J. Christoph and Amy Kaufman, the Illuminae Files by J. Christoph and Amy Kaufman, The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare, A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth, Something Dark and Holy by Emily A. Duncan, the Simon Snow series by Rainbow Rowell, The Drowning Empire by Andrea Stewart, I think, and the Cassidy Blake series by V.E. Schwab. I'm not sure if those were all right, but that's as good as that's gonna get. So now I'm going to launch on in to each of these categories, the series which are top of my list, ones I actually have at the flat that I want to get to, and fingers crossed, may actually use some of in the Final Book Support Group readathon weeks. So starting off with series where I only have 1 book that I currently need to read, though as with many of these I may need to reread books I've already read to continue with them. We have The Green Hollow duology by Emily Tesh. This is Silver in the Wood and Drowned Country. I read Silver in the Wood around this time last year, loved it, haven't got around to Drowned Country yet. Considering they're both tiny novellas, I will probably reread Silver in the Wood to read Drowned Country, but this is quite possibly one of the top contenders for the first Final Book Support Group week. I love a novella, these are like gothic-y, interesting, fun. Very simply, this follows, I think, a guy who takes over like a stately home estate kind of thing and comes to discover that there's like a groundskeeper who I think is almost slightly cursed to be there, like a man in the woods. It's all very interesting, it's queer, kind of romance going on. I really enjoyed it and I'm super excited to continue when I get to it. Next up, we have A Beautifully Foolish Endeavour by Hank Green. This is the sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which I do not have at my flat. I have no excuse for this because I did read half of it. I don't know if I have a bookmark anymore. I may have got rid of it. Yeah, I finally got rid of the bookmark, but I started this last year, but it was right at the beginning of when I was going into my awful reading slump, and so I ended up putting it down along with every other book I was reading around then, and I never picked it back up, but I do really want to finish this duology. This follows a 20-something New Yorker, and one night she comes across this weird statue which just appears in Times Square, and she makes a YouTube video about it, which goes kind of viral. As it turns out, these statues have appeared all over the world. They get named the Carls, and it turns into this huge sci-fi puzzle. Really interesting. And this one started really interestingly, and I got halfway through before the slump hit in its entirety, and I read nothing for 4 months. So I really want to continue it because I'm so close to finishing this series, literally half a book, and I've not done it yet. Next up, we have the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. I will just hold up the first book for now because they're heavy. This is a YA sci-fi series which I love. I have read Skyward and Starsight, but I have not yet read Cytonic, which came out at the end of 2021. I very much want to read Cytonic, but to understand it fully, I would really like to reread both Skyward and Starsight, especially as I absolutely adore both of these books, and I want to enjoy this series to its fullest. My one hesitation is I believe the 4th book in this series is coming out probably in 2023, and I'd imagine towards the end of it, because these books seem to come out every 2 years-ish. And so I'm wondering, do I delay my reread until a lot closer to that time so that I don't then have to reread all 3 to read the final book? That's my concern. I don't know, but nonetheless, like, I am kind of itching for a reread of these. I'm considering doing like one every 6 months. so that they end up being at roughly the right time, but I get gaps between them. But also it's a very like marathon worthy series. So I don't know. But this follows Spencer, whose one dream is to be a fighter pilot. However, her father was a fighter pilot who deserted, and so she is getting tarnished with his name and isn't allowed to become part of it. And it turns into this sprawling sci-fi YA series, which I absolutely adore. Next up, we have another novella series with the Singing Hills Chronicles, starting with The Empress of Sultan Fortune, followed by When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain, and I believe there's a third book coming out later this year. I didn't love this, but I did read it when half asleep. I was so tired the day I read this that I don't think I fully understood it. It was in my Do I Like Tor Novellas vlog where I read one every day for a full week, and so I was so tired. I did not give this book its fair go, so I definitely need to give it another go, and then continue with the series so I can get up to date and pick up the third one when it comes out. I'm not really going to try and give a synopsis of this because I don't feel like I understand it, but very basically this is someone like telling a tale of their life and being interviewed kind of by someone else to work out what happened in their life and everything going on around them. I don't know more than that. Next is a series I don't actually currently have at my flat, but I'm thinking more and more I may try and get to relatively soon, and that is the This Mortal Coil series by Emily Suvada. I love this series. It's a YA dystopian. I've read the first book twice and the second book once because I reread the first to read the second, but I have not read the third book, This Vicious Cure, yet. Mainly because when it came out, I had so recently reread the first two that I didn't want to reread them again. It has been a good few years now, so I'm feeling more and more up to it. I don't think I'm going to reread the first book again. I think I know enough about that and know it well enough that if I read the second one again, that it will kind of catch me back up and I'll be absolutely fine without having reread the first one. I remember a lot of it, it really stuck with me. But this is a really interesting, as I said, YA dystopian series following a world where basically there's a virus coming through, and when you get it, you basically get really ill and end up basically exploding. But if you find someone who is infected with it and hasn't exploded yet and kill them and eat their meat, it keeps you immune from the virus. And it turns into this really interesting topic of people having like biotechnology in their arms and being able to like hack things in themselves, and what people have experimented on, and there's just so many layers to it and it's so interesting. I massively enjoyed it. It's a really sciencey based dystopian, so I do really want to go back to it. Next up we have the Nevermore or Morrigan Crow series by Jessica Townsend. I have read Nevermore, I have read Wondersmith, I have not yet read Hollowpox. I don't know if there's more books coming out in this series, honestly. I just know Hollowpox got delayed like a million times. But I do want to continue with this series more than anything because they're so damn beautiful. Like, this is what they look like under the dust jacket. They're all different and they're my favourite things in the world. But I don't read a lot of middle grade. I kind of don't love middle grade. It's good, I enjoy it, but it doesn't really draw me in. Though, this is my favourite middle grade series I've ever read. I really, really enjoyed the first two. So I do want to give the third one a go, but it would require at least rereading the second, if not rereading both. So I'm currently kind of chancing it, waiting to see if there's any more coming out and figuring out my action plan. If these are the only three, then I may try and do it in the relatively near future, like maybe this year, just to get the series ticked off. But very basically, this follows Morrigan Crow, our main character, who is a cursed child, and as such, anything that goes wrong around her, she is blamed for, and she has to apologise for. And she has been told on her, I think, 12th birthday that she will die. And just as it's about to, strike midnight onto her birthday, a guy called Jupiter North, I believe, comes and steals her away and takes her to Nevermore, where she is entered into a trial to prove her skills and magic. It's a good time. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. I actually need to finish it. And then the final series, where I only have one left, is King of Scars. Well, yes, King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. The second book being Rule of Wolves. This is a duology surrounding Nikolai. I'm not interested in this anymore. I'm debating it. I do kind of want to continue it because just close out the Grishaverse, be done with it. But I've also kind of lost interest. It's been a bit too long since I read all of the other Grishaverse books for me to still be massively interested in it. So I don't know. I'm not going to synopsis this one because I can't remember, honestly, but everyone knows the Grishaverse. If you don't, where have you been? But I should finish the Grishaverse books, realistically. But we'll see. Okay, we're now going to move on to series where I have 2 books left to read, starting with The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I have The Goal and The Legacy still to read. These are the top of this list because I'm going to read them soon. Probably not in a final book support group week, just because I will read them anyway. And like a lot of romance series, it is a series of standalones pretty much, so it's way less stressful. I just pick one up when I feel like it. There's no needing to remember the previous ones, there's nothing like that. And I really enjoy them, so I'll probably pick them up soon. But yes, these are very simply romance, college set romances based around members of an ice hockey team. They're a really good time. I very much enjoy them. I will read the last 2 when I get around to it. Next up, we do have one of the most intimidating series for me, but one of my highest priorities. Jade City by Fonda Lee. I have read Jade City. I've not read these 2 hefty things, which are Jade War and Jade Legacy. I am terrified of this series. Jade City took me like 6 weeks to read. I found it really tough, but really good. And I've scared myself out of reading Jade War. I will do it. This, I think, will be the perfect kind of thing to use final book support group for, to make me start the damn thing because I'm so scared of doing it. This is the proper like series intimidation coming in. So maybe in March, you will finally see me actually read Jade War. You also very much may not, but you might. Next up is one that I honestly truly wish was on my DNF list, but for reasons it is not. And I'm also realizing that I guess I should probably actually say there's 3 left in this series. I don't know. Court of Wings and Ruin! How many times have I spoken about this on my channel? I read ACOTAR, didn't like it. Read ACOMAF, had quite a good time with it. To be told by everyone that this one wasn't as good. And so all my motivation to carry on with the series vanished because like, if it's not as good, why would I read it? When I only kind of liked ACOMAF, like it just doesn't appeal. But I need to read this for reasons. One of them being, I want to read A Court of Silver Flames, which is why I'm realizing I probably should have said there's 3 left in this series, not 2, because I was thinking of this in A Court of Frost and Starlight, the novella. But I guess Silver Flames is kind of the same series. I consider it a separate series that's now starting. But I want to read that, so I have to read this and other reasons which I won't say, but yes. A begrudging thing on this list, and again, probably a really good option for final book support group, because I don't want to do it, but if I just say I'm doing 100 pages of this each day of that week, I'll get it done. And it'll be worth it when I get to read Silver Flames. I hope. If it's not, I'm gonna be so mad. You have all hyped Silver Flames to me so much. If you are wrong, I'm not gonna be happy. The next series we have is the Bright Sessions novels by Laura Shippen, starting with An Infinite Noise, which I've read, followed by Neon Darkness, which I haven't, and then Some Faraway Place, which I do not currently own. I'm trying to not let myself buy it until I've read Neon Darkness. These are books based off a podcast called The Bright Sessions, which I adore. I am so far behind on it. Again, I always seem to get behind on this damn thing. I do like a week where I listen to it obsessively, and then I forget to listen to it again for forever. So I've never been caught up. But these are based on that podcast series. It follows characters in that series this is like follows alongside the beginning of that podcast series, and you see like some of the same plot points. This, I think, is an origin story for the villain in the series, and I don't know exactly which one Some Faraway Place is. I know what character it follows, but I don't know where the story sits. I really love these because I love Lauren Shippen, I love this world, I love these characters. The main reason I haven't carried on with them yet is A, I'm useless, B, I kind of feel like I should get up to date with the podcast first, just because I don't think it'll spoil anything, but I know this one did cover plot points in the podcast, so if I'd read it when not as far in, it would have spoiled bits, and I really don't want to risk that happening, so I feel like I should get up to date with the podcast first, but I'm doing a really rubbish job at doing that, and this is an origin story, so it's probably safe. The benefit is these are series of standalones again, so I don't need to reread Infinite Noise to read In Neon Darkness. I kind of want to, but I don't have to, which is a nice situation to be in. So I don't know if I'll use these for final book support group right now, but definitely a series I need to continue. Next up, we have a trilogy where I've only read the first book, and I believe this is only going to be a trilogy, though I think Goodreads has a placeholder for book 4, but I've not heard anything about it, so I don't know. But this is the Sidekick Squad by C.B. Lee, with Not Your Sidekick, which I read and adored, and then Not Your Villain and Not Your Backup, which I haven't read yet. This is a very, very queer superhero book series following a whole host of characters, and each book focuses on a different character. I would need to reread book 1 to read the rest, but I think very basically, like, people have different powers, you're put into like a class of how important your powers are, and if they're important enough, you're taken off and trained. Other than that, you're kind of just left to your own devices. And I think it's following a group of characters, some who have powers, some don't, and it's just really interesting and very, very queer, and I had such a good time with the first book and just never quite got around to continuing. I remember I read the first very small chunk of the second one. There we go. 12 pages apparently. It's still got a bookmark in it. And then just never continued, and I don't know why. But one day I will. This would be a really fun one to like try and do all 3 in a week if I had a free week, so, you know, it's that kind of series. Next up we have something a bit different, which is poetry. So the book I have read but don't have here is The Princess Saves Herself in this one. And then we have The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, and The Mermaid's Voice Returns in this one. Now I'm doing this, I'm actually pretty damn certain there's a lot more of these books now out. I think there's at least one about Cinderella's shoe. So these shouldn't be in the 2 category, but we're here now. These are poetry, like feminist poetry, collections by Amanda Lovelace. The only reason I haven't continued with them yet is the first one made me cry so much that I'm really scared to continue. The first one had a lot of talks of grief and about the author losing her mother, and I'm extremely lucky that I have very much not lost my mother, but thinking about that made me bawl, and I'm now really scared to read the rest of these. But I think they'll be really good. I really did enjoy the first one. I also just don't read a lot of poetry. It's not something I go for very often. But it is a series I would like to continue, even though I've definitely put it in the wrong category. Next up, we have the Skybound Saga by Alex London, starting with Black Wings Beating, which I love. I've spoken about this on my channel before. I love this series so much, but I've not continued it yet. I specifically reread this book in May last year so I could continue the series, and I still haven't. To be fair, I was on my way into the fantasy slump then, so it's not overly surprising, but I still need to read Red Skies Falling and Gold Wings Rising. I love the covers of these books, they're so pretty. But very basically, this series follows a sibling pair, 2 of them, Kylie and Bryson. I knew it was something like that, Kylie and Bryson. And basically they're in a world where falconry is a big thing, so like your affinity to birds is almost seen as a power, and it like gets you a lot. And there's a load of complexity in war and animosity between different groups, some who believe that you should be like having birds, some who believe that's like the worst thing in the world. It's really interesting, it's really complex, which is why I needed to reread this one, which worries me because I've already forgotten the complexity again, meaning that one's going to be interesting. But we will see. We will see. I will continue the series one day though, because I do truly, truly love it. And then the final series I've put down that I have in the flat for 2 left, though I'm actually now thinking there are more than 2. I've done a bad job at this, is the Queen of Villaflaria series by Effie Calvin. This is towards the bottom of the list for me because I love this book so much and will 100% be rereading this at some point because I love it. I'm still debating whether I want to continue with the series. I do own the next 2, which is Daughter of the Sun and The Queen of Rhodia. I do own these, but I am debating whether I want to read them because I'm sure they're good, but I feel like I've heard that they're nothing like as good as The Queen of Villaflaria, which I just loved so much, and I just don't want to read something less good when this works perfectly well as a standalone. These are not quite a series of standalones, but each one I think follows slightly different people, and I get the impression from what I've heard that you, at some point in the series, maybe book 3, maybe later, and I'm now therefore making me think there are later books, I think things kind of come together, so you couldn't read them all as standalones, but this does not need a sequel. It could happily have one, but it doesn't need one, and I don't even think these books follow these characters who I love, so it's on the list because I own the books and I liked it, but I don't know whether I'm going to continue. There are then 2 other series where I've read the first book and not the 2 sequels, but I don't have either at my flat, and neither of these are going to be continued anytime soon, but both are ones I 100% intend to continue at some point in the future. The first being the Day of a Bad trilogy. I read City of Brass. I really enjoyed it. Like at the beginning, I was thinking this is going to be Strange the Dreamer levels of whimsy and I'm going to love it. And then I liked it. I found it really slow and really political, which worries me. I do struggle with politics a bit, and I've heard the second book is even more political, which is why I'm a bit scared of it. And then the third one is now out. I don't own it. I've not read it. Yes, I want to continue the Day of a Bad trilogy. I really, really do. I'm just slightly unsure about when, because whilst I'm still just coming out of my slump and still way too close for comfort falling back into another one, I don't think tackling big, intense fantasy books that will take me a long time to read is the right choice right now. But one day, I do really want to continue it because I really, really do think I will love it. And then, very similarly, Miss Bulmer Brandon Sanderson. I didn't love the first book, but it was interesting. I did enjoy it. It was like a 4-star read, and I do want to continue. I really, really do want to get into, I was gonna call it this like Sanderverse. What's it called? I cannot remember what his entire universe is called now. That's so annoying. Cosmere! It's the Cosmere! Okay. Oh my god, I want to get into the Cosmere, but all those books are huge and chunky and intense, and they're too much for me right now. One day, along with like Robin Hobb, which I've not started with at all, one day. It's the kind of thing I want to get to. It's just not suiting me right now, so I'm not doing it right now, but they are absolutely on my list as unquestionable series I will continue at some point. Moving on to the final section, which is series where I have 3 or more books that are currently out that I need to read, starting with one that has a lot more than 3 out. I think it has 5 out that I haven't read yet, and that is the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I own the first 4, and have only read the first 1. So, you know, it's going well. This is one of my series, which is like a key focus for 2022 for me, so I'm definitely gonna try and get to it soon. I will be rereading All Systems Red and then carrying on. Again, these are novellas and they're super good, so I think I'm gonna love them when I carry on with them. Just need to damn well get on with it. This is a really fun series following a murderbot, which is a robot designed for killing people. But this one murderbot we are following has like hacked its own system, so it kind of has a consciousness in a way, and has some thought and some control. And I can't really remember the intricacies of what happened in here or where it left off, but I remember it ending on a cliffhanger that I really wanted to continue. So I really enjoyed this and really, really cannot wait to continue with the series. This is definitely a top priority, one you'll be seeing me read really soon, especially as I have to read this month for Dart Attack. And then the final series with more than 3 out that I'm actually planning to read anytime soon, which is, there's 3 out as of about 2 weeks ago, is the Fortuna Sworn series. I only own the first 2, but I do really want to get back to this series. I liked the first one a lot when I read it. I think I would enjoy it slightly less now, but I do still want to continue. I know this series breaks everyone, and I want that like full-on angst to destroy me. So I do really want to continue with this. My worry is the books just kind of progressively get bigger and bigger, and I think the 4th one's like 700 pages, which is nuts, but if I get into it, I'll love it. So I just need to reread the first and carry on. I don't own books 3 and 4 yet because I want to make sure I'm going to continue with the series before buying more of them. I say whilst owning 4 Murderbot books, but I'm pretty damn confident I'm going to love that series. This one I'm slightly more unsure about. But very basically, this follows Fortuna, who is the last of her kind. She is a nightmare, and so she can like inflict people's fears on them. And she is looking for her long lost brother, who she believes to be dead. And all of a sudden, this weird guy turns up where she works and says, "I know where your brother is, marry me and I'll take you to him." Things spiral from there. There's like a big trial in this first book. I have no idea what happens in this one. But I'm intrigued to continue, and hopefully I will soon. But that is the last of the series, which is kind of up for grabs for reading in a fan or book support group and anytime soon. Obviously, I will not be reading all these series like in the next few months or in the next year. Like this is a hell of a lot of books. I have like 30-ish, if not more, books next to me that I've not read yet, and I love a standalone. I love very different genres to this. I will start new series when new exciting books come out. I have no problem doing that, but it's nice having like a list all in one place for ones I want to get to and ones I want to continue, especially with Steph's new readathon. But if there are any of these that you think I should like be prioritizing, and if you say David Battle Mistborn, you're wrong. I know everyone loves them and they're good, but it's not happening right now. But if there's any of these you really think I should be like putting to the top of my list, or you think actually will be really well suited for when I'm in a slump, even if I'm feeling a bit more intimidated by them, please do let me know. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, which looking at the time of how long I've been filming, I think is going to be pretty long, leave a book stack emoji, because obviously we have stacks and stacks and stacks of these things going on. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more bookish content from me. Links to all my other social media are down below in the description if you want to check out any of those. But that is it for this video. Bye, and I'll see you in the next one.